Now we are going to begin talking about structure of language. It's part of I language, and this will help us understand underlying patterns. So first we are going to see, as part of a structure of language, sound system. Okay? So last time or a couple of days ago I asked you, what's the difference between consonant and a vowel? Did I? Did you get a chance to take a look at that? Okay, let me go back. Have you learnt a language in the classroom? Yes? Which language did you learn in classroom? English. When did you start learning English?
3-4 years.
When? LKG. Right? Then why did you have to learn it later also? Were you taught English in schools and high schools also?
Yes.
Why? If you already did that in LKG, then why did you learn it again in high school?
We did not learn fully.
Go ahead.
We did not learn the complete language. Even now we didn't learn it, but then we added more words to our vocabulary
More words to vocabulary later
in the process.
in the process. Okay. So at any point in time, there are lots of questions that one can ask, but right now I'll focus on the questions that are related to sounds. So at any point in your learning of English, were you taught about sounds, that is particularly consonants and vowels? Yes or no? Yes. All right, letters, fine. But did your teacher say something about consonants and vowels? Yes? No? So at least you can say we were told, right? But we don't remember. Does anyone remember? Consonants and vowels? No. Okay, so can you tell me the things that you remember about that class? Just couple of them. Not everything you have to list for me. Just a
A, E, I, O, U are the vowels and the rest are consonants.
A, E, I, O, U are vowels and rest of them are consonants. Are you happy with that?
The Y part is also there.
Why part
I,
is,
A, E, I, O, U are the
why are they? Sure, that's an important question. Why are A, E, I, O, U vowels and rest of them consonants? Any idea?
When we speak, it starts from when we say A, O, it starts from here.
Okay.
When we say Ka, Pa, starts from tip of the tongue.
Ka, Ba starts from tip of the tongue. Say Ka. Do you see any role of tip of the tongue in that? No. Ba. Any role of tip of tongue in that?
A, E, I, O, U represent the sound. We have sounds in it. E. While if you take the letter B, we use our lips also. B. That part is also sound. So sound plus that part gives you the consonant.
Okay. So you didn't ask these questions at all? You might have asked. You don't remember, right? Okay. All right. Do you think, which language do you speak other than English? Do you think we have vowels in Malayalam also?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
What are the vowels of Malayalam?
A, E, E, U, U, A, I, O, A.
Not A, E, I, O, U?
Not like these.
So, A is not a vowel in,
It's actually a vowel in Malayalam. A. The sound is A.
okay.
It just has sound. A.
Do you see the things that we are talking about? Do you follow why we are talking about these things? Vowel sounds are not specific to English or Malayalam, right? I'll ask you one more question before I start with what I have to show. Many of you were told these are the A, E, I, O and U. These are the vowels, right? I think you were also told that we have only 5 vowels in English. Am I right? Now, I have a word for you. Okay? All of us have learned this word, and I'll just give one example for today. When we say this word, and hear me out carefully, when we say this word, what's the first vowel that you hear? Loudly? Where is that in this?
First.
What's the vowel this one is? And what's the first vowel of this word? So are they the same thing? No. These are the vowels of English, and this is a word of English, right? I am not telling you anything new. You learned this thing, and then you learned this word also. You were told very conveniently, these are the vowels of English. And then you were told a word, and in that word there is a different vowel, which is not part of these 5. Did this raise any question in your mind? Did you ask this question? What's the next vowel of this word? When we say this word, what's the next vowel? A. What do we write? So we are saying the next vowel is A. So the first one is A. I am putting 2 of them to show length, and then we are saying the next one is, let's say, A. Okay? So there are 2 vowels in this word. One is A, the other is A, and we write them differently, right? We write something else, we call it something else. Do you see the inconsistency? Now, I am pointing out these things not to show you flaws of English. I am showing you these things to sensitize to the things that you may or may not have paid attention to. All right? Now, can we say the vowel A is not part of English? Can we say that? If we are told, we memorized, we got good grades right from LKG, right? And we are doing great. So can I say A is not a vowel of English? We cannot say that. Then either one of the 2 possibilities is wrong. Either this is not right, right? In that case, we can say the fact that we are told there are 5 vowels in English is wrong. Or we can say A as a vowel is not part of English sound inventory. Do you see my point? One of the 2 is wrong. Which one do you think has problems? First one.
There are only 5 letters to represent all the vowels, but the spoken language has more vowels. The basic
Spoken language has more vowels, right? So we are saying the moment we are told that there are 5 vowel sounds in 5 vowels in English language, we need to specify that we are talking about 5 symbols of Roman alphabet which are 26 in number. Out. When we pay attention to English as a spoken language, or when we learn English as spoken language, English as part of a spoken repertoire, then we find a different inventory of vowels in the language. Get it? So, in the language, for the sake of learning to speak, there aren't only 5 vowels in English. Get this? So is also part of it. How are these things taught to us? Do you remember your LKG or class 1, class 2 English classes? How are these alphabets taught to us? Anybody remember?
With the name of some object.
Right. So how does that work?
A for apple.
A for apple, B for boy. Now, I want you to pay attention to the word apple. Okay? What's the first sound of the word apple? A. Where is A in that? Do you see this thing? The goal of teaching is spoken English, right? And we want to teach them A for apple. There is no A in the word apple. Do you see the problem? The second, I won't go all the way throughout the list because that's completely flawed. At this stage now you can see this at least. You started learning English from LKG. Do you hear the word A in the word, the sound A in the word apple? And we teach A for apple. What kind of a teaching is this? What do we want to say? If we were trying to teach, the word apple begins, the writing of the word apple begins with the alphabet symbol A, then it's making sense, right? But we are saying A for apple in spoken language. This is why I gave you the example of the word father, 5 vowel sounds, and the first sound is not part of this 5 inventory, this whole inventory of 5 sounds, not part of that. So, the moment we start paying attention to spoken language, things are different. Just look at one more example. The next one is B for boy. I think across the country or maybe across the globe, this is how it is taught, right? And then some schools may be using more fancy things like rhymes and other stuff. You tell me, is this thing B even a sound? So, where is B in boy? What's the first sound of boy? Ba. Where is B in that? See this thing? Where is B in that? And if you can add just one more, it can only become funnier. What's the next one? C for cat. What's the first sound of cat? Where is C in that? The first sound of the word cat is the sound ka. I hope you can see that we are not making up these things. We do not need to really go to a sophisticated laboratory to see these things. There is no A sound in the word apple. B does not even become a sound, and C for cat is completely outrageous because the first sound of the word cat is ka, which has nothing to do with C. See this thing? Now, the goal of this thing is not to show you these issues, and by no means I am trying to say what you have learnt is wrong. I'm sorry, what you have learnt is bad. What I am trying to say is there is a huge mismatch. Now, let's only underline through this description of what we have done is these things should be helpful for us in understanding sound system. Okay, which is to say sounds of a spoken language is completely different. No, not different. Writing system may not have to correspond with sounds of the language. No matter how much you teach A for apple, B for boy or C for cat, every child has already figured out that there is no sound called ba, no sound called B. We need to say ba. There is no sound called C, we need to say ka. So, what are the three sounds of the word cat? Ka, a and ta. See this thing? First consonant sound of the word boy, ba. You keep teaching B, C and all that. But children learning these things have figured out that actual sounds are ba, ka and a. They may not have anything to do with A, B and C in spoken language. Get this thing? This is what I want to underline to you. Then again, nothing against these things. These are symbols of written script. Therefore, they don't represent total number of vowel sounds in English. Total number of vowel sounds in English is not just 5. Okay? There are more than that. Can I leave this to you as an assignment to find out total number of vowel sounds in English? Right? Now, so when we move on, now I connect with the things that we have been talking about. Sounds are building blocks of language. We have seen there could be many words in a language, infinite number of sentences in a language, but a limited and finite set of sounds in every language. That finite set of sound is very small in number. Okay? When we look at inventory of sounds across languages, we find very few sounds differ in two languages. There are very few sounds that are different in two languages. In other words, what we are saying is languages share sounds. Get this thing? Languages share sounds. The more number of sounds that are shared between two languages, the closer the two languages are in terms of comprehension and production. The fewer the numbers of common sounds in two languages, the more and more differences in two languages. These are some of the common generic features of sounds. Then we started talking about consonants and vowels, right? And you were saying that probably we don't remember what we were told, and if at all you found something you remember, this is what you remember, right? Let me tell you about sounds. That's also consonants and vowels. Before we look at that distinction between consonants and vowels, I want to show you a particular picture. Do you see this thing? What does this look like? This looks like human face. That's some kind of a drawing of of this part. Remember this? See this? There's some kind of drawing of this part, right? There are two things here where I want your particular attention. All the names that you see listed, they are going to be important, but there are two things right now that I want you to see. There is one, this part. You see this? This is called, you see this thing? These are lips, teeth, tongue, and this thing. This part is called oral cavity. Okay? And this part is called, you see here, nasal cavity. And this thing is called oral cavity. Just these two parts I want you to see first. Sounds that are produced in the oral cavity are called oral sounds. And sounds that have something to do with nasal cavity are called nasal sounds. So all the sounds that you know, irrespective of vowels and consonants, they are going to be of two types, either oral sounds or nasal sounds. And only this much of apparatus is responsible for sound production, sounds of language. Okay? Little bit more about this. Little bit more about this in the sense that what's responsible for production of sounds? These are the places in which, these are the different types of cavities, oral cavity and nasal cavity, where sounds are produced. What's responsible for sound production? In fact, all of them. I am talking about something else, which is okay, if we have to, let me ask you a different question. If we have to say a sound, right, let's say ka and a, right? So ka is a consonant or a vowel? Consonant, right? And a is a vowel. Even though it's not very clear at this stage how to define a consonant and vowel, we know these two things, right? Ka is a consonant and a is a vowel. If you have to say these two sounds, which one do you think you can say for longer duration? A? For how long do you think you can say this thing? Forever? Long time, but for how long? Till our breath. Till we can hold breath. See, we need to be specific, therefore I interrupted, right? Not for ever, but ever is such a long time, right? We can't say anything forever. However, we can keep saying the sound a for longer duration as long as we can hold breath. Now, why can we not say ka for a long time? There is what?
It's unrestricted passage for vowels, but for a consonant, there should usually be a constriction in your this thing for it to become a consonant.
Very nice. Why didn't you say this thing when I was asking you about the difference between consonant and a vowel? They didn't teach you this thing. Then how did you learn that? Very nice. He found that, right? All right. So, see, lot of times it happens that you find out things on your own, right? And it's a generic thing, not generic belief, specific belief in at least language learning. You have seen how children acquired language just yesterday, and I have tried to show you so many things about that. And then it's not too much to say that children learn much more than they can be taught. In fact, there is no way one can teach everything that children know. See this thing? There is absolutely no way one can teach, and you don't even know what kinds of things children learn. They also learn not to tell others what they may have learned. See this thing? These things possibly could not be taught. Probably these things apply to everybody in a limited sense, but it applies to everybody. Lot of things you figure out on your own. You just saw this thing, what you were taught. You saw A for apple, B for boy, and C for cat. And now what you have figured out is very nice. I'm really impressed that for a consonant sound there is some kind of obstruction, right? And we will talk about those obstructions in order to be specific. And for vowel sounds it's not fair to say there is no obstruction, it's little obstruction. Because if we say no obstruction, then we will keep speaking all the time. Everybody will keep speaking, you just cannot stop if there is no obstruction at all, right? But let me go through this thing phase wise. So what's the thing that is responsible for speaking? What's the thing that is responsible for speaking? No. These are the organs. You just said something. I asked you this question for a specific reason. My question was, for how long do you think you can keep saying a? As long as we can hold breath. So what's responsible for sound production is breath. It will be easy for you to understand as you are engineers. Human body is the best, is an example of perfect engineering. Nothing happens in human body which has got no meaning, which has no purpose. Okay? See, we inhale air and that is called breathing. What happens in breathing? We inhale and then exhale. Okay? Inhaling is like input from the immediate society, right? We inhale. What happens? That air goes all the way to where? Lungs, right? This is not biology 101, this is something general knowledge that all of us know. It goes straight to lungs. It's separated in different parts, at least what lungs retains, what body requires, which is oxygen. Lungs retains oxygen that it has separated from inhaling air, which is required for body production of blood and blood circulation and all other kinds of things. We don't need to go into the details of that. What it also does is it exhales rest of it. That could be carbon dioxide or anything else. It only retains oxygen and exhales everything else. This is what is called breathing process. What is responsible for speech sounds is exhaling air, not inhaling air, exhaling air. The moment it starts from lungs, it comes to these areas, the places that you were talking about, vocal cords, larynx, velum, and anything else that you see, oral cavity and nasal cavity. The exhaling air is moving through these passages, and with more obstruction of that exhaling air, we get consonant sounds. With little bit obstruction of those that amount of exhaling air, we get vowel sounds. This is so far is common for all the languages of the world. Okay? Because there are only few, there is a limitation of this apparatus. This apparatus is limited in its physical form. Therefore, only limited sounds. See this thing? Why limited sounds? Because there is a physical limitation on our apparatus. where the total number of places of articulation for different sounds is limited in number. However, for combining sounds together and combining words together, what is responsible for them, for those processes, the responsible mechanism for those processes is generative capacity. And generative capacity has something inbuilt which can result into infinite things, therefore infinite sentences and words. However, limited number of sounds. Get this thing? I'll give you this picture. We'll upload this online as well so that you can see these things. One more thing. You see this, there is one more part which is important, where you can see, before I give you examples of actual sounds. You see this part? What is this called? This part is called uvula. You see this area? Now, this is one thing. I mean, it's hard to see glottis and larynx and other things. You can see them in picture, but then that's hard to see in actual sense. However, uvula, you can, if you try, you can see that. You just have to open your mouth wide enough. Don't do it in public. It's not a good thing. You can do it on your own whenever you feel comfortable. It's not a very nice looking thing, but you can still see that. It has got a very specific purpose. What it does is, when we are speaking things, when sound production is in process, if it is lowered, then the passage to nasal cavity is open. Shouldn't be very difficult mechanism for you to understand. And the moment there is some amount of flow to nasal cavity, sounds get nasal quality, therefore nasal sounds. So when we say words like, sounds like ma or na, what happens is the uvula gets lowered. Some part of flow of air moves through nasal cavity, and therefore we get nasal sounds. There are more nasal sounds that we get, but this is how we get it. When the sounds are not nasals, the uvula is raised, which means the passage to nasal cavity is completely blocked. Therefore, no nasal quality on sounds. What we get is only oral sounds. So when we say ka or ba or pa, do you hear anything nasal about it? We don't realize, but uvula is raised. So lot of physiological processes that keep going on, motor control things that are going on, we are not aware of them. Okay, but those things keep happening. That is called conditioning of vocal tract. Okay? Speakers of a particular language have a particular set of sounds. While acquiring that language, what happens simultaneously is our vocal tract gets conditioned for that language, for the sounds of that language. Therefore, when we speak English or we learn English later, we speak English differently from those who started learning English way too early. In other words, if we consider some people as native speakers of English, our English is different from them because of that reason. Under no circumstances we are going to be speaking like them. You see my point? Therefore, if we do not speak the way Britishers might be speaking or Americans might be speaking, that's not our flaw. That is related to conditioning of vocal tract. The places where we grew up is responsible for input. and that input is responsible for conditioning of vocal tract. And then when we learn something else later on, that conditioning stays. And if we want to learn some new sounds from some new languages, then those sounds get influenced by how our vocal tract is already conditioned. It works the same way for native speakers of English if they try to learn Hindi or Malayalam or Punjabi or any other language. Same thing happens to us. Therefore, please keep this thing in mind that we cannot be speaking that way, and it's not our flaw. Right? If someone tells you, why do you not speak English the way Americans speak, it's one of the most unethical question to ask. It's like saying, why don't you look like Americans? Do you see the point? It's just not possible. What is responsible for that is how and when the conditioning of vocal tract really took place. There are some people who are born and brought up in America who look like us, but their conditioning of vocal tract is perfectly like the conditioning of vocal tract of a native speaker. They speak English differently. They speak English very differently from us, and their conditioning is responsible for this. Get this thing? So these are a couple of side notes. I'll keep coming to this picture once again. Right now I want to take you to these terms. So two broad types, oral and nasal, clear? Places of articulation and manners of articulations are the two things that we will be talking about. Places of articulation refer to different places in this vocal apparatus which are responsible for sound production. And how, that is, there are more things responsible for that which is referred as manners of articulation. So these are going to be two important things which we will be looking at in a clear way, and that on the basis of these things we will be able to see the clearer distinctions between consonants and vowels. Okay? And to begin with, the actual distinction between the consonant and vowel is unrestricted flow of air with little bit obstruction results into vowel sounds, and more obstruction at particular places gives us consonant sounds. Sometimes that obstruction could be total obstruction, sometimes that obstruction could be partial obstruction, but there is substantial obstruction when we are talking about consonant sounds. So that's the fundamental distinction between a consonant and a vowel. Alright? There is one more thing which is important for you to know, which is all the consonant sounds of all the languages that you know or you may not know have one particular vowel already inbuilt in them. Okay? One particular vowel is already inbuilt in them, right? And you can figure out these things very quickly. When we say a sound like ka, do you hear any vowel here? When we say ma, pa, or any other vowel, any other consonant that you know or you may not know will have this sound inbuilt in it. Okay? That is also the reason why we are unable to say a consonant for a long time. Because if you try speaking a consonant for a longer duration, what you end up doing is you end up speaking the vowel sound. In fact, it is so important that we cannot even say a consonant sound without that. Can you try saying ka without that a? Nice try, right? Nice effort. But you realize what I am saying? It's impossible to say. Sorry?
Suppose in Hindi say the word sankal.
Sankal.
So the la there is just just the consonant without an addition of.
Sure. Right. That's true. So, I am not saying it is not possible at all, that is going to be possible in a word, but can we say that half la? You get my point? What I am saying is, if you are saying just isolated sound, there is no way we can say that. However, that's a great example. It's not just Hindi. In all languages of the world, we can say sounds without that vowel only when they are in words. For example, when we say a word of English like school, the first two sounds, what are they? Sa and ka, right? And I think I have given you this example earlier also, that if we want to reduce the cluster, we would end up saying as sakul. So, the fact that we are not saying sakul and we are saying school, something is happening to that. What's happening here? In the word school, school, so we have two sounds here, sa and ka, right? Both of them are vowel, both of them are consonants. We know that consonants have inbuilt vowel sounds in them. That inbuilt sound is actually a, this is how we represent them, it is called a schwa, a. So, when they form a cluster of two consonants together, okay, this one is dropped. So, dropping this vowel out of an isolated sound is not possible. However, dropping of this vowel quality, that is inbuilt vowel quality, out of a sound is possible when they form a cluster with another sound. See this thing? So, we can say school, where sa is being spoken, being pronounced without that a. The moment we add that a, that becomes sakul, right? The moment we add that vowel, it becomes sakul. You see what Punjabis are doing. They are not doing anything wrong. It's simply the fact that their language does not allow cluster. That is, to be more specific, we can say their language does not allow dropping of that inbuilt vowel from a consonant sound. And this cluster of two consonants or three consonants are not only possible in the beginning of a word, it is also going to be possible in the middle of a word. Okay? Therefore, we get words like sankalp. Okay? In a language like Hindi, what's not possible is a cluster at the end of a word. Okay? At the end of a word where the last consonant is going to be half. That word is not possible in a language like Hindi. However, they used to be possible earlier in something like Sanskrit. So, you may have things written, at least in some places, words like swagatam. Have you seen this word written? And then in some of the letters you see some slant line given. That is an indication of half sound. That is, that half sound simply means lack of that vowel. So, probably in old time it was possible to say a half sound at the end of the word in a language like Sanskrit, but now that word is part of Hindi, swagatam, we do not say that as half. We may write in any which way we want, but we do not say it that way. We still say, how do we say that word for welcome? Do you hear that sound a? That's a complete word, complete sound. So, how we write is not important. We started with that. I just told you A for apple and B for boy does not mean much. So, how we write is is a completely different convention, okay, is a completely different system of learning. However, spoken language is different when we look at these fundamental aspects. Get this? Any questions so far? No? Are these things making sense? Clear? I have 2 more minutes to show you something. Some examples of vowel sounds. These are not all. There are some examples of vowel sounds. They are a, e, u, and u. So one is a is a short vowel and its counterpart a is a longer than that. When we say long vowel, we mean relatively longer than a. When we say e, the distinction between e and e is again relative distinction. One is shorter, the other is longer. And finally, the vowel sound u has similar distinction between short and long. What is another interesting point with these vowels is a. What would be the place of articulation for a in the oral cavity? That is to say, if we divide it in, let us say, 3 parts vertically, right? If we divide this in 3 parts vertically and we say front part, mid part and back part. So a will be, therefore that is called a back vowel. Okay? E relative to u, mid vowel. No, not just because it's written here. I want you to realize that. And when we say u, that's front vowel. See this thing? Now, this distinction that you see, first there are 2 things I say before I stop for today. This distinction that you see, front, back and mid, these are called on vertical axis places of articulations. And if one is short, the other is long, that's about manner of articulation. That is how these things are said. Okay? Number 1. Number 2, this distinction is not a new thing that I am giving you. Do you know when this distinction was first brought to attention? Any idea? So naturally you don't know who did that. Have you heard the name of Panini? Anybody? Oh, you said that? Panini? So when did he live? Sorry? Say something. When did he live? According to some estimates, he lived around 500 BC. Okay? Which is how many years from now? 2500 years. That's the point is, it's not 10 years ago. It was not published in Science or somewhere else. Do you know, do you guys know the year of invention for printing press? It was around French Revolution, right? These things were done way before any machine, sophisticated machines like the ones that we see were developed, or even printing press or papers were in place. This was just somebody's observation, which is absolutely accurate with all kinds of mechanical apparatus even today. There is no dispute that U is a front vowel. Of course, mid, back, front, these are English terminology. Panini had different terms for them. Okay, he didn't talk about mid, back and front. He talked about same thing in different language of his time. But these distinctions were done long time ago. There's nothing new about them. And the second thing is, these vowels are called cardinal vowels, and they are not the vowels of Hindi or Tamil. These vowels are available in all the languages of the world. This distinction of a and a, e and e, and u and u is done in all the languages of the world. Probably some of the languages are dead from Paninian time. Some of the languages didn't even exist. For example, modern spoken Hindi and modern spoken English was definitely not there at that time. So what he was talking about was true for languages of that time, true for languages that may have died, true for languages that did not even exist. See the power of that argument? See the power of that classification that someone came up with 2500 years ago. There are a couple of other things about consonants that he has given, he has talked about, and the picture that I was trying to show you, the story that I told you about exhaling air being responsible for production of speech sounds, the distinction between oral cavity and nasal cavity, how oral sounds are produced and nasal sounds are produced, all of them were discussed by Panini. There is nothing new in those things. It's just that these stories have been told in different languages at different points in time. We talk about consonant part next time when we meet. Thank you.